Hurricane Milton is no more. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on our dangerous Hurricane Milton. It is now extratropical. Watch at the beginning here when it was a major hurricane, and after it crossed the state, look at it. Completely caught up in the frontal boundaries. It is now extratropical, no longer a tropical cyclone. Still some gusty tropical storm force winds, though, north of Abaco Island and to the west of Bermuda. We have Leslie, which had been a Category 2 hurricane. It almost became a Category 3 major, and then look at it, just getting sheared away. We're going to watch it as it continues to sputter, but it should remain out at sea. And then we've got a couple other features we're going to talk about. Here's the latest on Milton. Post-tropical cyclone Milton. Milton is no more, but the wind field has expanded. There will still be some water rises around the areas there of the southeast coast around the circulation of the system as it pushes away, but after that, won't have to deal with it. As of 5 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center, all storm surge and tropical storm warnings discontinued, but gusty winds and coastal flooding will gradually diminish along the southeast coast through tonight. And then, of course, in the wake of heavy rainfall from Milton, the risk of considerable urban flooding will linger through this evening across east central Florida. Moderate to major river flooding is ongoing and forecast throughout central Florida. Finally, in Florida, continue to use caution. Keep generators ventilated and outside your home to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. If you're cleaning up storm damage, be careful. If you use chainsaws and power tools, don't hurt yourself. And drink plenty of water to avoid heat exhaustion. Taking a look at the radar there ain't much left in Florida. We have a little bit of sporadic storms here, mostly just scattered sprinkles, and that's from areas of Daytona down to Sebastian as what's left of Milton pools away. Milton was a heck of a hurricane developed there in the western Gulf of Mexico, in part from what was that tropical depression south of Mexico. It's hard to remember, but we had Hurricane John back when Helene was hitting, and then we had a tropical depression that looked like it was going to become a tropical storm. It never did, but kind of what was left of it, and some thunderstorms and frontal boundary and a tropical wave, just a big mess there in the Gulf, and we ended up with a tropical depression, and then it just did a glide east northeast straight up towards Florida. Now, the good news was it was a record breaking hurricane over water, but then it weakened dramatically by landfall. So there's a big difference between a hurricane strengthening into landfall and weakening as it makes landfall. And there's also a difference in size. This was a very small hurricane, and that kind of kept the winds confined to a smaller area. Only 30 miles from the eye were hurricane force winds. With Helene, it was 60 miles. So that was very fortunate as far as storm surge, but where they got hit bad. As far as the most intense hurricanes on record in the Atlantic, Wilma still holds the record, 2005, 882 millibar pressure. Gilbert in 1988, 888 millibars. And then, of course, the Labor Day hurricane, which went over the Florida Keys in 1935. That's the strongest U.S. landfall in history, 1935, 892. Rita got to 895, and Milton came very close at 897, but Milton was the fifth strongest hurricane we ever saw in the Atlantic, and that was one of the fastest intensifications ever after only Wilma and Felix in 2007, and it was the fastest ever in the Gulf of Mexico that we recorded. Look at the storm surge damage. Devastating, devastating, devastating storm surge damage. As I scroll through this video, this is from Inglewood, Florida. Again, these are very well-built homes. They have great building codes in Florida, but once that water comes in, you get debris everywhere. Very, very nasty. Now, as I mentioned, the hurricane force winds were only in this area of the state, and they shrunk as it came across, but there were strong wind gusts even up into Tampa and all the way towards Orlando and Daytona Beach. But the real surprise were the tornadoes. The tornado outbreak, it was massive in Florida, and I had somebody on social media make a good point that if there was more land over here to the east of Florida, it would have been one of the biggest tornado outbreaks in history because that radar showed a ton of tornadic cells over water. So thank goodness that wasn't over land, but what we had was pretty darn massive. We ended up having 17 tornadoes in Port St. Lucie, according to the sheriff. Now, there's a report 35 confirmed dead in the Spanish Lakes community, which is an elderly mobile home park. That might be fake news because I'm seeing officials saying 6 dead, 11 dead. I don't know, but I think that toll will go up. But it could be 35. I don't know, but it could also be fake news. Look at this damage here from the tornadoes. This is just, look at that. The dumpster on top of a house. That's when you know there's a violent tornado, and that meant business. Look at this tornado in Fort Pierce. That is one of those upside down wedge, upside down Christmas tree tornadoes that you normally see out in Oklahoma, not with a hurricane landfall in Florida. You'll get a lot of tornadoes with tropical cyclones, but not usually these violent giant ones, and that kind of took everybody by surprise. There are almost 3 million people still without power in Florida. Again, those winds ripped right across. And then you have over here in those counties like St. Lucie, Martin County. This is St. Lucie, this is Martin, this is Indian River. You had a lot of tornadoes. So you've got flooding, you've got tornadoes, you've got wind damage, and then of course at the coast there near Sarasota, almost 300,000 still without power as of Thursday evening, storm surge damage. Milton was one destructive hurricane. Then we go further out, and there's Leslie, still dealing with Leslie at 23.9 north, 50.9 west. Winds of 70 had been up to a Category 2 hurricane, and the forecast had it reaching Category 3. You know, it's remarkable. Major hurricanes, you only get a handful a year. And so far this year, we've had Beryl, then we had Helene, then we had Kirk, and now we had Milton, 4. Had Leslie done it, it would have been 5. Had Francine or Ernesto, which both were Category 2s, reached 3, then that would have been 6 and 7. So it's amazing how close we come to an astronomical amount of major hurricanes, but Leslie was not a major hurricane, and it fell apart today because it got naked. It got totally naked. Let me show you. On the edge of the screen here, look at right there. You see that? That's a naked swirl, and that's because of this wind shear affecting it. So Leslie got its center exposed, and it weakened all the way down to a tropical storm. Look at this wave leaving Africa. We're going to watch this as it exits the coast. Right now, it's a low chance for development, but it could do something, maybe steal a name. Now, the name list we're cutting through pretty well here. Alberto, Beryl, I could guarantee you there won't be another Hurricane Beryl. The destruction in the Windward Islands, the Yucatan, Texas, they'll retire that name, replace it with another female name that starts with a B that we haven't used before. So it can't be Beryl, it can't be Betsy, but it could be something like Beth, let's say. And then as we go down the list, Helene, obviously Helene's going to be gone. Say goodbye to Helene. Say hello to something like Heather 6 years from now when we reuse the name list. Milton was the replacement name for Michael in 2018, and I think it's a one and done. I have a feeling there will not be another hurricane named Milton, and so maybe we'll get a Milo or a Maurice or something like that. The next name on the list, Nadine. I got to tell you, after Hurricane Michael in 2018 and Hurricane Milton in 2024, Nadine has missed out on being a big hurricane. Hopefully, if we get Nadine, which we will, it won't be anything notable. But I want to mention this. Some of the longer range models are showing another system coming out of the Caribbean towards the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of them showing a hurricane. Some showing a decent, strong hurricane. We don't have anything down there yet, but we should know in the next few days as the models give us better guidance and we watch down there. And then there's that wave off Africa. That could do something. And those models show it reaching pretty far west in the long run. Not strong, but that's the GFS. Look at the European. Look what it does with our system off Africa. Brings it all the way into the Greater Antilles. Now that would be at the end of this run, which would be October 20th. And it shows a couple of systems forming there in the Caribbean. So there's nothing there yet. But there's a lot of alarmism out there of, oh no, another hurricane's coming. We don't know for sure. But the odds probably favor something else this time of year. This is a very backloaded hurricane season. What we didn't get in August, we're making up for in October. And even November, we've had dangerous hurricanes before. So I don't see anything down there yet, but over the next few days, keep an eye. So again, Milton is no more, headed out into the Atlantic, into the hurricane history books. Leslie is naked in the middle of the Atlantic. Look at that exposed, weakening vortex, and it should remain out at sea. We'll watch off Africa, and we'll keep an eye on the Caribbean as the next few days roll by. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. I'll talk to you next time.